especially for women. Rukia, a peer educator on topics as diverse as savings and loans, reproductive health, and conservation, has gone from owning an energy saving stove to selling bread and honey. The proceeds from sales allowed her to afford a new roof for her house.
Zamani wazazi walikuwa tuseme walikuwa kina mama hawana haki. Halafu pia kwa hakuna biashara za kujinufaisha. Kwa sasa hivi kidogo tunashukuru, hata tunashukuru DSCN. Toka alipoingia yani katika kijiji chetu kutoka miradi, kina mama tumeamka tuko mbele.
Such practical and effective solutions like the energy saving stove are typical tools of an integrated approach known as PHE, or population, health, and environment. These major areas of development work, which are sometimes isolated in policy, are all naturally connected. To better understand the challenges these communities face, we need to examine how these issues interact. In the coastal regions of Pangani district, overfishing has become a problem. To keep up with increased consumption and make money, fishermen turn to exploitative and unsustainable practices.
Ni kutumia baruti ndio uvuvi ambao wanaharibu mazingira, na kutia dawa uvuvi haramu ule, sumu ndio uvuvi ambao wanaharibu mazingira.
Helping to alleviate the need for exploitative fishing is the environmentally sound practice of seaweed cultivation. As an alternative livelihood, women in Pangani and Tanga districts cultivate plots along the nearby shores. It provides these women with a cash income roughly double what a family might earn from other, more environmentally destructive activities.
Maritime activities are kind of alternative stabilizing activities to make them go from illegal fishing to other more environmental friendly activities.
While practices like seaweed cultivation and clean cook stoves are part of the solution, the need exists for a more holistic approach. The growing number of people dependent on local natural resources, trees for fuel, fish for subsistence, is unsustainable both economically and ecologically. Family planning and women's empowerment are key to a long-term integrated approach to addressing these problems.
Pale unapokuwa unazaa watoto wengi kupita maelezo, kwanza pana athari zitajitokeza mbili. Watoto wanaweza kupata utapiamlo kwa kutokana kwamba unashindwa kuwalisha lishe inayokamilika katika nyumba kwa sababu familia imekuwa ni kubwa. Na pili, panapokuwa na watoto wengi, ni lazima hali ya mazingira itakuwa ni mbaya tu. Itabidi uingie mpaka sehemu labda ukakate misitu kwa sababu ya kulisha watoto. Kikubwa tunachohamasisha kwamba watoto wawe wa wastani, wakuweza kwamba hawa watoto wanaweza kuwalisha, kuwavisha na kuwatunza kielimu.
Training community members is one of the most important tools for PHE projects like this. They train local villagers like Fidea to become PHE peer educators who can discuss the linkages of conservation and health with their neighbors.
Mabadiliko yote hapo kwa sababu kutoka tulipoona mambo ya kuhamasisha mambo ya afya, na wengine walikuwa hawana elimu ya kusoma kwamba watoto wengi wanaleta athari, pia wamelielewa hilo, wamejirekebisha, na utumiaji wa uzazi wa mpango kama kondom, sindano, vizazi na nini, walio wengi wamehamasika sasa wanavitumia hivyo vitu. Kwa hiyo pana faida ambayo inaonekana kati ya hapo.
PHE training is also given to small shop owners and community-based distributors to provide information about family planning, while family planning services are available from certified pharmacies as well as community-based distributors. By leveraging this point of contact for health services, information about PHE is delivered directly by fellow community members.
Ukisema watu wanaopata kutokana na mazingira ya biashara wanayoifanya, huwa wanakuja hapa na kuomba ushauri wa baadhi ya mambo, mfano uzazi wa mpango. Sasa tukiwa katika sehemu ya mpango huwa mara nyingi natumia kuwaelimisha kutokana na kondom unazouza na nini vinondo vya flexible ambavyo tunaweza kupanga.
As access to family planning grows, the dynamics of these communities have begun to change.
The participation of women initially in Pangani was really poor, but after several trainings in the awareness campaigns, activities regarding the theater shows, and the mobile video units, we have been able to trigger some discussions, community dialogues where women are now becoming active contributors in this gathering of several development agendas in their community.
Ninakuwa naeleweka na jamii, kwa sababu wale walikuwa hawanifahamu vizuri sasa hivi wameniinua kwamba na mimi naeleweka katika kijiji, hata kwenye mikutano mikuu wananielewa, hata nikisimama nikizungumza kitu wananielewa kwamba mimi ni nani. Kwa hiyo ninajisikia na amani, kwa sababu nimepata elimu, nimepanua mawazo, akili na ufahamu wa kuweza kuzungumza na mtu yoyote, na ndio maana ninaweza kuzungumza sana wale wagonjwa wa VU bila shida yoyote.
Nilikuwa kujisikia hiyo kwa na wanaume kama 3-4 siwezi kupita. Lakini sasa hivi niko imara hata kama kwa na watu mmoja. Mimi nasimama kile kutokana na ile elimu ambayo tumeelimishwa. Kwa mfano ujasiriamali, uendeshaji wa mazingira. Kwa hiyo ni elimu kwa ujumla kufuatia. Imetokea faraja mpaka sasa hivi na kwa sawa katika mazingira yote kwa
For generations, women like Rukia, Mahija, and Sidea have served as the glue for rural villages in Tanzania and around the world. Through the PhD approach, these women are now empowered to better use their resources to plan their families and to improve their livelihoods. Through their empowerment, they are able to promote a more balanced, sustainable way of life in their community and for generations to come.
You guys can go ahead and come up if you like. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our panelists this evening, just so you have a little background on who they are and why they're here. Us, as a group, the Students for Gender Equality, talked a little bit about who we wanted to invite tonight to speak, and we wanted to give people from different academic standings and people with different perspectives to have a chance to talk on the panel this evening. So I'll just go ahead and introduce them. Dr. Steve Boss, here at the front, is Professor of Geosciences at UA and Director of the Interdisciplinary Doctoral Program in Environmental Dynamics, as well as the Co-Director of Sustainability Curricula in the University of Arkansas. Naomi Brodkey, second on the panel, came all the way from Washington, D.C. today to be with us. She's the Program Assistant for the Global Population and Environment Program at the Sierra Club. Before joining GPEP, Naomi was involved in various health and environmental initiatives at the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health at the WHO, Save the Children, and the White Ribbon Alliance for Safe Motherhood, and the National Environmental Education Foundation. Naomi has a Master's of Science in Global Health from Maastricht University, with focused research in environmental health, and a BA in Sociology and Social Studies of Medicine from McGill University. Third is Dr. Moon. Dr. Zola Moon conducts research and teaches in human development, family sciences, and rural sociology within the School of Human and Environmental Sciences at the University of Arkansas. Her specialties include rural and environmental applied sociology, spatial analysis, demography, natural resources, poverty, rural health, and community theory and development. And finally, Joanna Pollitt, last but not least. Joanna worked and now volunteers at the Applied Sustainability Center, where she had a leadership role in developing a grant-funded program to empower 16 Arkansas cities to develop strategic energy plans, including energy efficiency and renewable energy initiatives. Joanna is currently a doctoral student in environmental dynamics at the University of Arkansas with an emphasis on local and international community resilience planning, and teaches nutrition and cooking classes in her community as part of Cooking Matters National Initiative. So we want to give each of the panelists a few minutes to take the time to share with us their perspectives on the movie and the issues in general, and then after that we'll do some Q&A. So go ahead and start, Dr. Boss.
Oh, I get to go first. Okay, well, that was really a pretty delightful movie, I think, and it shows us one effort, at least, to empower women, and I think we've known for a long time, Zola's much more adept and more expertise in this area than I do, but we've known for a long time that empowering women and educating women is one of the most powerful and effective means that we can use to manage world population growth and improve the life of people in developing world, countries all over the world. So exactly, it was very evident in the movie. They talk to these women, and they're telling their own perceptions of themselves, and I think their real perception of self is very strong, and it's really impressive to see their confidence and their dignity and their self-worth as a consequence of just engaging them in this process and giving them some power, making them peer mentors, and making their lives a little better. So I think that's a pretty impressive view that comes out of this movie.
So the Sierra Club is working very closely with the Woodrow Wilson Institute, who produced this movie with the funds of USAID. And a lot of what this work is about is integral to the work of the Global Population and Environment Program, with whom I work at the Sierra Club. The Global Population and Environment Program has 4 basic tenets. One is that we advocate for access to family planning and reproductive health services for all women everywhere in the world. 2 is that we empower women through education and advocate for empowering women through education and economic opportunities. 3 is through engaging youth in this country domestically as well as around the world. And 4 is to talk about wasteful resource consumption in the developed world and the impact of wasteful resource consumption in the developed world on people everywhere else. So this film is one that I, perhaps not obviously, but am obviously very linked to because our partner produced it and we've shown it quite a few times, and it resonates with us because it talks a lot about the lives that women have and how they are so deeply connected to the environment and what's around them, which is again one of the things that we talked about in all of those 4 other areas that I've already mentioned. So we advocate strongly for everything that was in that film because a large part of our work is about the work that women have with the environment, their physical as well as surrounding environment, and the impacts that climate change has on women around the world.
Well, my colleagues, I would say ditto, but that would be very helpful. So I'll say ditto, and let me add perhaps a little different dimension here. One of the things that I was very pleased to see about this project is the solving problems. Because I think sometimes when you start talking about world population and environmental issues, it's pretty easy for everybody to get really depressed and sort of overwhelmed. And one of the things that I started doing that Dr. Foster alluded to is really looking at what in the development world we sometimes term projects at the inconvenient middle. And that's where people are solving problems in their local community with the resources that they have. They're not going to solve everything, but they are going to solve this thing in the community. So one of the things that I would really like to sort of highlight here is really the power of the efficacy of local communities solving a problem. And we know that being aware of the gender issues and empowering women is a really good way to get at those local issues. So one of the other things I would add here is that as you look at these issues, a lot of this sort of thing is happening that we need to create together. And more people need to know about because we're probably not going to solve global issues with one size fits all kinds of solutions. And one of the really strong messages here, obviously, is that local, specific problem solving. And I was talking about the first
Well, certainly I found the film very encouraging. And I love the nexus between family planning, population health, and education and environment. The PhD model, and really drawing those connections. I've been fortunate to go to some villages in Africa, particularly in Kenya, and see how important it is for women to be empowered and the difference that they really can make, how transformative that can be to the communities and villages where they live. So, not just for them and their families, but for the entire community. And I think that was very well demonstrated in the film too. So, I just, really loved seeing it. I think population is something that I've found concerning for a long time from an environmental perspective, and just having concerns that maybe we are really reaching quote-unquote the carrying capacity of the Earth's ecosystem as a whole. But it's a very controversial issue, and it's something that is difficult for us to talk about a lot, and across different cultures for a variety of reasons, particularly because I think it has us face some topics that are difficult generally for us to talk about, like gender equity and racism and classism and nationalism and all kinds of things like that can be tough to talk about, But I think it's important that we do, and that we do that across those barriers that we find difficult to communicate across, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to develop solutions that were demonstrated in the film, and we need a lot more of those.
Is there anything that any of you wanted to add? I'm not sure if any of you had slides that you wanted to show, or no? Okay.
Did you have to bring?
No.
Okay. And just touch on one of the last couple of things that you both said. One is about the local. So the Sierra Club is a domestic organization. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Sierra Club, it's the nation's oldest and largest environmental organization. And our work, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Global Population and Environment Program, is that our biggest campaign is coal, and closing a lot of the coal plants in this country, getting beyond oil, getting beyond natural gas. And then we have some smaller programs, including the Global Population and Environment Program. And the Global Population and Environment Program is working on international issues within a domestic organization. So we're working domestically as an advocacy organization on international reproductive health issues, which may seem foreign, no pun intended, to people in this country, but we are working locally. And so I just wanted to touch on that because obviously it's really important. People in this country may not, because of the sensitivities and all of the other issues that are surrounding these topics, may not realize what our impact has in other countries, but also how women's lives can be affected by something like family planning, the ability to space and choose if, when, and how many children to have. And it's a matter of self-control. Self-control in the sense that to have control over one's own body and one's own reproductive health, and giving women the empowerment and the power to have that control over one's own body. So working locally, we have volunteers across the country, including Joey and Andrea in the front row, and we work a lot with these communities around the country to talk to them about the issues that we're working on, but also to make them empowered to talk about them in their own communities as well. So working locally, but with a global focus.
Well, yeah, and I use those words because I think that, when you start talking about development projects, the classic traditional model has been large-scale development. And we've demonstrated pretty well that that kind of development does some things really well, like it's really good for if you're building a dam and you don't care what happens to the water, right? But, there are certain kinds of things that will accomplish. But if we're really going to solve some of the kinds of problems that are coming here, and having that local efficacy, that personal efficacy and household efficacy, we're going to address gender equity or other kinds of equity issues, we're going to have to be able to come together and
and solve that at the local level. That we can, so doesn't mean we're going to reach hands across the way, right? But we probably don't know how to solve the deforestation problem in this community. Now we might have some ideas, we might be able to contribute knowledge or perspective, but probably they have a pretty good idea. So yeah, I would second.
Okay, Joanna, did you want to say anything about the Green Village Foundation and some of the work that you've done with them?
Just kind of teeing off of what Joanne just said, one of the main approaches or part of the mission of the Green Village Foundation, which is a small NGO that works with communities in West Africa and one in Kenya, to help just kind of work with them in terms of consultation and also some financial support on projects that have been started in those communities by people in those communities towards sustainable development, instead of like coming in and saying, hey, this is what we think we need to do, you know. But usually it has to do with like kind of business acumen type skills, and you know, how do you've got a great product, how can we help you get it to market? You know, just kind of filling in those supply chain gaps and things like that. So, but you know, certainly one of the things that we come across is, I mean, I think about our director, you know, and one of the things that he told me one time was, it's all about the women. Because the women are the ones doing most of the work, and you know, in our communities, and you know, they're the ones that take care of the children and the elders, and you know, if we can lift the women up, then we'll be fine, you know. And I can't help but think about, like, you know, these kinds of population issues get really controversial, like I said earlier, but what if every woman and family, you know, because it's not just women, it's just works with men too, in the world who really wanted to family plan, you know, wanted to say, hey, we want to have 2 kids, but we're going to end up with 5 because we don't have access to education, or we don't have access to and you know, affordable access to family planning and contraception. I mean, what if all of those people all of a sudden have it? You know, it's like over 200 million women, right? That could be pretty transformative. I read a statistic today. Of course, I was preparing for this panel because I'm not a demographer, and I wasn't even sure why I was asked to be on it, but thank you.
I'm going to have to tell them why you're asked.
But, they were saying that if that happened, then it, you know, this is just some crazy, one of those crazy statistical estimates. But it was basically that it could reduce the carbon emissions by such a percentage that it was the same equivalent as if deforestation wasn't an issue. So, you know, I mean, just to think about things like that.
So thank you for saying that, and I'm sorry for cutting you off by Aubrey walking across the stage. I wasn't going to use my PowerPoint because this is such an informal conversation, but I have a slide that demonstrates exactly what you just said, so I'm just going to bring it up because it's a very important one and relevant to what we're talking about right now. So have you seen this, or would you like to talk about it? So Sakala and Sakala are 2 professors from Princeton University who did the Stabilization Wedge project in 2006, which demonstrates ways to reduce our carbon emissions by 2050. And another researcher by the name of Brian O'Neill realized that giving access to family planning to the 222 million women in the world who want access to family planning and contraception, but can't, if we were able to meet that demand and that need, we would actually eliminate one of those wedges to reduce carbon emissions by 2050. So more cost-effective and easier than deforestation, which is another reason that we advocate for access to government funding. But indeed, giving women access to family planning would enable us to reduce our carbon emissions. Not entirely, but it's one of those wedges.
Now, at the risk of stirring the pot, let me make a little addition to that. And please understand that I am in favor of access to family planning. Okay, so do not. But I get concerned sometimes, and some folks heard me in class on this. I get concerned sometimes when we start talking about population issues, solving environmental problems, that we're asking the wrong question. Because the question we really have to ask is on the consumption plan. And we don't know what the carrying capacity of the earth is. What we know is that we are bumping into biophysical limits because of the way we are using the natural resources in the consumptive market-based economy that we have constructed. That's what we know. And we know that the number of people in the world now could not, we don't think we can sustain the natural resource base if they consume like we did, like we do, and 9 billion people are too many.
It'll be fabulous.
Right. But what we don't know is how many could we sustain if we were more ecologically sensitive and smart about our resources. So I get a little, I want us not to lose sight of the two-sided question. Sure, that would cut consumption. That would cut CO2, and that would be a good thing. But we could achieve that using other efforts as well, and enabling people who want to have more children to have more children.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
I mean, I think you ought to have as many children as your family wants. That's 2 or 7. But as a demographer, I would also remind us that there are lots of drivers about wanting to have, my grandparents came from families of 8 and 10. How many of your grandparents or great-grandparents had more than 4 children? Right, because we were an agrarian-based community, we had, economy in that time, and we had high infant mortality rates. Now, I sometimes shock my students by saying the following: we could solve our population problem if we would stop helping reduce infant mortality rates and just let those babies die off. We would not have a population problem. Right? Right? And we're letting old people, so we could kill all the old people. But wait a few years because I'm getting up there. And clearly that's not those are not acceptable alternatives. But understanding some of the dynamics about why in Africa the population is growing, it's not that those women are having more children than they have historically. They're not. Their TFRs, their total fertility rates, are not higher than they were earlier. But their children are surviving better. And there are gender equity issues that are at play, and women are having more children perhaps when they want because they're not able to plan a family. That, I don't agree with that. But the drivers of what's happening, it's kind of important to understand what's happening, I think, in terms of why those populations are not growing so rapidly. And I think sometimes we get hung up on the wrong